What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my top 100 player rankings for the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the last couple of days, I've gone through my running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end rankings. We are now combining all those positions for my top 100 overall. If you guys want to get my full top 200, the link will be in the description. Google Sheet, you guys can download it, use it in your drafts. It is totally free for you guys. Just kind of going to be a rapid fire video going through these top 100, splitting them up into different tiers. And let's just dive right into it here. So starting off in tier 1, I have Jamar Chase, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, and Justin Jefferson. Now, I would say that Jamar Chase should be in a tier by himself. This just came down to me not wanting a million tiers to the point where the players are too small, you can't even see them on the screen. So Jamar Chase is my clear-cut 101. There's a gap, but I didn't just want a one-man tier, so combine them all together. But after Jamar Chase, I think there are arguments for multiple different players at the 102. At this point, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs with the O-line injuries to Bijan Robinson. I think CeeDee Lamb has a case. You could certainly argue Saquon Barkley up there. I mean, the dude was the running back one last year. I think maybe of all the dudes in the top 5 or top 6, the only guy that I don't think has a strong case to be the 102 would be Justin Jefferson, just based on playing with a rookie quarterback, but talent-wise, he is obviously up there with the best. So that is my tier 1, my pretty clear top 6. Now moving into tier 2, this is from the 107 through the 204. I have Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr., Ashton Jeanty, Devon Achane, Brock Bowers, and Derrick Henry. So I start off this tier with Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, all the upside in the world at the running back position. You just have the injury concerns. Then I have this tier of wide receiver that's really kind of fluctuated throughout the offseason. Puka has only fallen to tier 2 due to the Matthew Stafford back stuff. If Stafford stays healthy and I knew he'd be good to go for the full season, I would have Puka up in tier 1 as my number 7 overall player. I have moved Malik Neighbors ahead of Nico Collins, also bumped Amon-Ra St. Brown up a spot. I just think his floor is very, very high, and it's not like he has a low ceiling either. Then we get into like my round 2 players, which is Jeanty, Achane, Bowers, Derrick Henry. I like all of these running backs. I do think Achane slips a little bit with his calf injury. If he was fully healthy, I'd have him ahead of Ashton Jeanty. I really like Brock Bowers as early as the early second round. He is my clear tight end 1. I think in a boom year, he could also just straight up be competitive, like from a point per game perspective with some of these other wide receivers going in a similar range. And then Derrick Henry, don't think he has the craziest ceiling, but I think he does still belong in this tier. If you were going to take a 1-2 turn, I certainly don't think that would be crazy. Now looking at tier 3, this is pretty much like mid to back end of round 3. I have Drake London, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Trey McBride, Ladd McConkey, Josh Jacobs, and T. Higgins. For the running backs in this tier, these are the guys I think are solid picks, should be RB1s, but maybe just don't have like that crazy nuclear upside, like the 20 plus point per game upside of the guys going ahead of them. For the wide receivers in this tier, I think Drake London probably has the most upside. A.J. Brown, just someone you feel confident is like a mid to back end wide receiver 1. I think Ladd has a lot of upside as Herbert's number 1 target. And then T. Higgins doesn't have that crazy upside, but was just like the wide receiver 5 last season. And then Trey McBride, going to command a lot of volume. I do think he should be a round 2 pick, and is someone who I do end up drafting a lot in like that 2-3 turn area. Now moving into tier 4, I kind of went back and forth on where I was going to have these quarterbacks. They're kind of like right in between 3 and 4, where it's like I'm firmly taking Jacobs, Higgins, Ladd over them. But then once I'm getting into like the early round 3 area, I'm also pretty easily taking them over like Hampton, Hill, Cook, guys like that. So in my quarterback rankings, like I did have Josh Allen and Lamar like in a separate tier from Hurts and Daniels. Here I have them all together, but they're just kind of in a weird spot where they're like in between 2 tiers. But then the running backs in this mix, as you can see, in this range, once we're getting into round 3, I'm just really fading these like lower upside wide receivers. So I'm targeting running back, right? Amarian Hampton, James Cook, Kyron Williams, Kenneth Walker, Travion Henderson. I like tight end in this range, whether that's Trey McBride slipping, George Kittle here in like the mid to late 3rd round. And then I've got like the elite quarterbacks. And then I have 1 wide receiver in this range, which is Tyreek Hill. He's a boomer bust pick. I think he has a lot of upside, but he's also risky. But if I'm taking a swing in round 3, I don't want to be drafting like a wide receiver that I think is going to peak as like the wide receiver 13 or 14. I want to take a swing. Tyreek Hill is that swing. Now, moving into tier 5, this is the very wide receiver heavy tier. We have Devontae Adams, JSN, Mike Evans, Xavier Worthy, Garrett Wilson, Tedero McMillan, George Pickens, Marvin Harrison Jr., Breece Hall, RJ Harvey, and Travis Hunter. There are a lot of different wide receiver archetypes in this mix. You've got like some of the veterans and like a Devontae Adams, a Mike Evans. You have some of these like younger options, a JSN, a Xavier Worthy. Got a couple of rookies in this tier with Tedero McMillan, Travis Hunter. You can kind of see which archetypes I guess I'm leaning towards. I do like some of these rookies, probably more than consensus, also higher on consensus on Xavier Worthy and George Pickens. And then the couple of running backs in this tier, Breece Hall, RJ Harvey, have started to drop Breece Hall, but I'm still a believer in the talent. And then for RJ Harvey, I do also really like his upside in a really fun landing spot with the Broncos. Then moving into tier 6, this is like the start of round 5. In my rankings, I have James Conner, Jalen Waddle, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, Jamison Williams, Emeka Egbuka, and Rashee Rice. So once again, pretty wide receiver heavy. You do have like this 4 or 5 turn running back grouping with like James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, more of the veteran options, but guys who I think are totally fine in this range as like mid to back end RB2s. And then just super wide receiver heavy before the next tier, which is going to have some quarterbacks, some running backs in the mix. A lot of these guys I think are lower upside plays, like a Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith. You got some wide receiver 2s or just like wide receiver 1s that I don't think are like, top 12 upside potential. So, guys I think are fine in this like round 5 range, but do have them separate from those tier 5 wide receivers. Now moving into tier 7, more of a mix within this tier. I'll just start off with this first, running back grouping plus Joe Burrow leading this tier. I'm going to be lower on Joe Burrow. I think he's going to have a great season from a passing perspective. It's just for fantasy, it's tough to reach like that, peak upside if you're not given a lot with your legs. Then I have this grouping of running backs, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco. These are all guys that like based on the platform are pretty interesting picks, like around this pick 60 range. So all guys I think are interesting. RB2s if you attack other positions early or just like really strong RB3 options. Then we have a lot of wide receivers here. Roma Dunze, Chris Olave, Matthew Golden, Ricky Pearsall, Jerry Jeudy. We have Sam Laporta in between those guys. And then Juwan Jennings, Stephon Diggs, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers, Patrick Mahomes, and Deebo Samuel. I guess I'll start off here with Sam Laporta. I think he's slightly ahead of the other tight ends behind him. I talked about this in my tight end tier list video, but there are going to be a lot of tight ends in tier 8. I do think Sam Laporta is slightly ahead of those dudes. Then just a really interesting mix of wide receiver. Once again, you've got some veterans, right? Like a Jerry Jeudy, a Juwan Jennings, a Stephon Diggs. Also have some of these younger options, guys who are waiting to break out. Roma Dunze, Matthew Golden, Ricky Pearsall. Like Chris Olave also just as like a pure talent. And then I have moved Patrick Mahomes up in this tier. I am just kind of buying into a big bounce back here from Mahomes and this Chiefs offense. With just how many years consecutively he was so good to start off his career and then back-to-back kind of just like average seasons for this offense and Mahomes, I do think he could have a big 2025. And then for Jacoby Myers, I have moved him down. He was someone I was pretty interested in, but the trade request, especially like this late in the offseason as we approach week 1, not an ideal situation. Now let's look at tier 8. And like I talked about, there's a lot of tight ends in this tier. Got some running backs, still have the wide receivers. So I have Jordan Addison leading this tier, a couple of running backs with Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren. Then we're getting into the tight ends, Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, Khalil Shakir mixed in there, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. I guess I'll talk about that initial grouping. I think this Caleb Johnson, like Jalen Warren backfield will be super interesting. I think Jalen Warren will probably be the better play week 1, but you'd assume the young rookies, going to improve his workload throughout the season and potentially break out over like the second half of the season. For Jordan Addison, a little bit lower on him than consensus. Obviously, the suspension isn't great, but I also just don't think he carries a lot of upside where he's been solid in his first 2 seasons, but he has been very reliant on getting into the end zone. And he just doesn't really strike me as a wide receiver that I think is going to consistently have high touchdown numbers. He's done it through 2 years, but like if he turned in 3-4 touchdowns this season, that would not be shocking to me. Then we're really getting into the tight ends. I don't think there's a ton of separation for these guys. I think even going from like Laporta to like the tight end 12-ish, I think these guys are very close together, and I don't think you should be reaching for any of them. I think within that tier, you should just be waiting for whatever guy kind of slips to you. So we have the tight ends mixed in there. Then we got some more running backs with Tyrone Tracy, Zach Charbonnet, Travis Etienne. Tracy, Etienne kind of lined up to be week 1 starters on their rosters. Zach Charbonnet, kind of an expensive handcuff, but there have been these rumors that this could be more of a 50-50 split. I do like Zach Charbonnet. I think he's a good player, and we have seen like anytime Kenneth Walker goes down, Zach Charbonnet is going to step in and be an absolute monster, probably like the most valuable handcuff with some, potential like ambiguous backfield, committee upside. Then more of these tight ends with Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, David Njoku, and then some wide receivers, Darnell Mooney, Jaden Higgins, Chris Godwin, Keon Coleman, Michael Pittman. Really strong mix of like, some veterans with Darnell Mooney, Chris Godwin, Michael Pittman, some of these younger unproven options with Jaden Higgins and Keon Coleman. And then the last guy in my top 100 to close out tier 8 is Kyler Murray. Now, if I were to continue my top 100, you guys can check the Google sheet, but I'd be getting into like Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, like back to back with Kyler Murray. And then we're starting to get into the running backs like the J.K. Dobbins, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill Krosky-Merritt, Cam Scatabo, guys like that. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for my top 100. Obviously, more of a brief video, just kind of overviewing my rankings. You can get the top 200, some of the general trends. Quarterback, I like going elite, or I'm getting those late options, normally outside, the top 9, 10 rounds, waiting for like the Drake Mays, the Justin Fields, the Trevor Lawrences of the world. At tight end, kind of a similar thing. I'm either an elite tight end, or I'm waiting towards the bottom of that tier where you're getting into like Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, maybe a Tucker Kraft. Running back, wide receiver, I think is pretty dependent on the platform, but I do kind of like that pocket. What is it? The tier 6 guys, right? Like the Tony Pollards, Aaron Jones. I think if you're struggling at running back, that's a nice spot to go after those dudes. I like the rookies, Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey. I think wide receiver, probably fading them in round 3, but I think once you get into round 4, round 5, there's going to be a lot of interesting values. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. It's kind of like a quick hitter for you guys. Thank you all for stopping by. Check out all the other rankings videos. I think today or maybe tomorrow I'll have like a hot take video for the season coming out. So that should be fun, more of like a lighthearted video. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.